Yeah, we might as well just jump into it. Dominic, please take the lead.
Man, like, yeah, just even the how they started that on Wednesday, that segment with Eddie and Brian in the background with
Which was a
Dominic.
great promo.
That was
And
really great promo.
by
Yeah.
both guys. Eddie Kingston usually kind of steals the scene when it comes to promos, but when he walked off, Bryan Danielson gave it wasn't just kind of what you get used to when you're watching non-scripted wrestling promos. I mean, scripted is way worse, but non-scripted, it just usually devolves into I'm just going to kick your ass or whatever, just like very basics. But they kind of told a neat little story there.
Yeah, like both of them deal with their own sort of depression, and like Brian was kind of calling Eddie out, saying he didn't work hard enough, but he's like, I didn't mean it in that regard. I meant it you can put more into it, kind of thing. And then he was just saying that, yeah, it was. He was like, I will beat you. That's basically it. But Eddie just saying just flat out doing it and saying hey, I take a Zoloft so I don't kill people, basically is what he said. And he's like, now I'm turning my back to you. And he's like, I got nothing more to say. And then,
yeah, that was great. Him turning his back to him to end it was nice.
And then the match itself, man, you hear that Boston crowd, Bryan Danielson's the biggest babyface in wrestling. I always say that. And the crowd was so behind Eddie. And I think that was such a neat aspect about it because they were just laying into one another. Eddie kept fighting from behind in a lot of ways. And ultimately, and it was just two different styles and a lot but Bryan Danielson being able to brawl like he does too. And blending that all in. And they wrestled very well too. They did a lot of good wrestling in that match. So it was, and just Brian's chest, holy shit. It's just
doesn't it feel like old school wrestling where back in the day it used to be the Northeast, if the Rock and Roll Express made an appearance up there, even though they were baby faces, they get booed.
Yeah.
They weren't crazy about the whole Hulk Hogan, Jake the Snake walking out with a snake scene. It wasn't, they were more focused on we want wrestling, we want blood on the baby face and the heel at the end of this thing.
Yeah.
So it feels like old school wrestling returning a little bit, where it's they want some blood and guts out there, and Eddie Kingston is always going to deliver.
I was showing a coworker here who's only familiar with Bryan Danielson, well, Daniel Bryan more so because of the Bella's show. So she doesn't watch wrestling, but I always keep her updated. She's like, I loved him. He was great on that show. And she would always talk about him. So I always keep her in the loop about him. And so I was like, hey, you got to see what he's doing right now. And I showed her a quick clip of Eddie just chopping the fuck out, them just slugging away at one another, and Eddie giving him insecurity. And she's like, oh my God, that's crazy. Just a non-wrestling fan just seeing all that stuff and seeing how it was really, really, it's just neat that it can kind of transcend that if you show it to somebody like that. And
no doubt. And it does, it's cool. It's simple storytelling. Where on Wednesday, if my wife hadn't, who's not a wrestling fan, if she had walked in during that promo, I think that they could have hooked her to watch the match.
Right. Yeah.
Even as a non-wrestling fan, where it's look, they built a nice little personal issue in a very small window of time, and they had a great payoff. So it's really all you can ask for as a fan. And then the non-handshake at the end, Dominic. I think that, I hate to pee on people's parade here, because I think that people are oh, they're gonna get into a feud. Those two have known each other for a long time, so I'm guessing that that's more just we'll continue this another time.
Yeah, that'll continue. And not only that, but I think it'll continue in sort of a friendship kind of thing.
Maybe.
I think it will. But the only thing that a wrinkle in this is what happened afterwards. CM Punk promo and Eddie getting angry. What did you think about that, and where do you think all that's kind of going?
I think that CM Punk is getting to pick his shots right now in AEW, and it's not a bad thing. I think he sees people that he wants to work with, and they're giving him the opportunity. So I think more than anything, that was CM Punk seeing how great Eddie Kingston was, not necessarily just on that night, because obviously they wouldn't be organized enough to set up a promo directly after the match. But I think that this has been a long-term, CM Punk sees what Eddie Kingston's been doing. He's been enjoying it. And I think that that's just, okay, he's next. So, Eddie Kingston cannot win a damn match, though. which is not. I mean, obviously, he's winning on dark or elevation or whatever. But when like the bright lights are shining, it hasn't been great for Eddie Kingston. I think he needs some wins under his belt.
I agree, but
High profile wins.
He did beat Archer, and unfortunately, the match didn't pan out well. Like, obviously with the mood salt stuff, and so they had to call an audible of that one. But yeah, I mean, so that would have been a big name match. But I'm with you, and I think they can kind of lead into more of him. Okay, he's losing, so that's why he's kind of so upset, and that's why he's getting kind of pissed, and like he flipped out on Punk and all that stuff. So I kind of think it just plays into the story at the moment too. So and that's going to be a really good program. I think it's going to happen at Full Gear, the match, but it should kind of happen a little bit longer, don't you think? I mean, with those two guys talking on the mic to one another, I'd like to see that go for a few more weeks.
I'm all about extended. I'm all about extended programs. You know that. I like the long game in pro wrestling, where it's like, okay, let's build towards something. Like, I think if you get into a program with a guy, you should be working with that guy for at least 3 months.
I think a defense for that though is just that they are both baby faces. So I don't think you need to necessarily concern yourself with, okay, this has to be a long-term feud. It could just actually really ultimately play up to the pay-per-view and finish up after that. And then, if one of them turns heel at some point, or it makes sense to have a storyline with them again, you can do it again. But
Dominic Steven is saying Eddie versus Punk, good match for Full Gear. You think that's what the direction we're headed?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm thinking it's going to happen at Full Gear.
Good.
I think it would. Rich says, how about Mox and Kingston with Bryan and Punk?
Yeah, that could be fun. And again, that is like a little bit more of an old school mindset, where it's like, okay, let's not give it away right away. Let's get set up with a tag match where, like, for example, if Mox and Daniel Bryan are going to feud, then let's put them in a tag situation where they are only in the ring together for a very, very short period of time, and it's explosive before the heel goes and tags out like a coward. That's usually how they used to do it back in the day. So you could say like, oh, wait till he gets in the ring with him. Wait till there's nobody to tag out, and then the next match he takes a powder and it's a DQ loss. And then, they say, okay, well, we got to contain these two in a cage. That's usually how it works, or it did work.
Yeah. Where that's the blow off match, basically.
Right.